Welcome to the Bitcoin Source podcast, where we delve into the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I'm your host, Daru, and today we have a special guest joining us all the way from Zimbabwe, Alex. He is the founder of Bitcoin Reach, the community, this community based, Bitcoin only group in Zimbabwe and an advocate for cryptocurrency adoption in his home country. Please welcome Alex to the show.
Hey boss, how you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. So, Alex, I want to kick this off by asking you my first question, which is, can you start by sharing the story behind Bitcoin Reach and what ignited your passion for Bitcoin and inspired you to establish the first Bitcoin only community in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, so the story behind Bitcoin Reach was that I used to work for a podcast called Global Bitcoin Fest. And Global Bitcoin Fest has interviewed over 50 Bitcoin communities globally. What we do is we interview people creating communities. And, I heard so many inspiring stories in Japan. I heard so many inspiring stories in Canada. And, you had people who, there wasn't a single movement in these countries, but people come together. They say they're going to meet every Tuesday, for example, at a coffee shop, and then they come together and they share how can they grow the Bitcoin community, the adoption, how they can fight political issues in regards to Bitcoin, and what kind of impact that has in the nation. Because these are the guys who end up building the Bitcoin companies, who end up fighting litigation, and who end up driving adoption for those nations. Even like the communities like Prime Trust and El Salvador, who end up teaching, developing diplomas, you know, and growing that knowledge, right? For the fact that people have to get diplomas in order to before they graduate school. So Bitcoin Reach was that okay? There's nothing like that happening in Zimbabwe. The reason why nothing like that is happening in Zimbabwe is because Zimbabwe went from hero to zero. What happened was, Bitcoin, Zimbabwe's inflation is known to everyone, and our capital controls are extremely harsh. Sometimes it goes to a point where, individuals could only withdraw $3 for the entire day, and like the queues for your lines are really bad. So there was a massive demand for a decentralized currency that allowed trade neutrality. So a lot of individuals wanted that. A lot of individuals, as soon as Bitcoin came into the market in 2015, that's when it was hyping up in Zimbabwe. There was I think there was one company called Kulaks that was doing about 1 million trades, $1 million per transaction per day. It was really growing. And then the government imposes an implicit ban. So when a government imposes an implicit ban, it means that the country is not allowed, or banks are not allowed, to offer services to Bitcoin or crypto exchanges, which means that off ramp and on ramps are cut off, and then it increases the cost of people to obtain Bitcoin, right? So, for example, Bitcoin is allowed in our neighboring country, South Africa. And because of that, individuals can purchase Bitcoin at 1%, 2%, 3% premiums. So it means that if individuals want to go and pay in the 1,500 stores and that accept Bitcoin and Pick and Pay, for example, it's still feasible to do that. But if you want to do that in Zimbabwe, one, the business cannot go to the bank and cash out, convert the crypto or Bitcoin. Nor can they, and nor is the customer himself kind of decentralized. The reason why they decentralized is because it costs you about 10% to buy Bitcoin on average in Zimbabwe. So you already have this big markup to just buy your day-to-day goods, which I think really de-incentivizes the adoption rates in nations that need it the most. So the adoption of in Zimbabwe is really low in comparison to nations like Nigeria, where they have about a 35 to 37% adoption rate. Zimbabwe is only 1.27%. And to that, I was like, okay, it's I love my home nation. I love the people I grew up with. What can I do in order to get people to understand the importance of this technology, the importance of saving this technology, and even if they can't buy and save in it, can they start pushing the movement forward through education, through community meetups, through Twitter Spaces, through content creating, for example. Even if you can't buy it for yourself, that's not an excuse. It's still a financial war, still a financial revolution that we need in Africa, especially in Zimbabwe. So that was kind of the beginning stories of why I thought Bitcoin Reach itself was so important. Not the beginning of why I got into Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And you know, I kind of want you to expound a little bit more on the economic and like political landscape in Zimbabwe. Like, what has been the most significant challenges or rewards that you've seen introducing Bitcoin to the masses in your country?
Yeah, so the economic challenges. um, so Zimbabwe is the most miserable country in the world. It's the most miserable country in the world um, because we've suffered an 8.6 trillion rate of inflation. 8.6 trillion rate of inflation, something that I don't even think is normal. We've suffered the second highest rate of inflation in history. In history, um, only one other nation, I think it was Hungary, that has beaten us. And even today, that was happening in 2018. Even today, our inflation rate is about 822%. If you look at the second place to the highest inflation rate, it's only about 100%. So we're close to 600% bigger than any other nation. What kind of effects does that have on a nation? Well, when your wage goes from, and I personally experienced myself where, you know, so many of us were getting out of high school, so many of us couldn't even finish high school, couldn't finish university. You go from a place where you're one of the most illiterate countries to the point where the parents can't even afford to send none of their kids to get a decent education, just finish the education, or to even begin the education. So you go from a country that's the most literate to having one of the highest high school, primary school, university dropouts because individuals can't even afford that. And then, okay, now you dropped out of high school. What's next? Well, you go from a place of where you're earning $500 to $300, and that's like so much money in Zimbabwe. Like, not in America, it might be a different thing, but it's so much money to earn $500. And you're like, okay, this is a good wage. And I've seen someone who has so much hope, like, I've got a good job, I'm earning $500, things are looking good for me, to within just a couple of months, that $500 has turned to $50 because you're getting paid in the local currency. We went from having your US dollars in your bank in a nostro account, right, nostro foreign account, to the government waking up and saying, we're converting all your US dollars into the local currency, which is a pseudo currency. So pseudo currency means the currency that has no legal tender outside of Zimbabwe. It cannot be traded and converted to either other foreign currency. It only has value in the nation itself. So of course it doesn't. How can it have the same value as? And it was given as a 1:1 rate. So you wake up, your currency is converted without your permission, without your consent, and then that money that you now have, or that currency that you're not being paid in, is inflating at 100 to even it goes as high as 1,300% rate of inflation. So your wage goes from $500 to $50 to $20 to $10, and then you're like, it's not worth going to work anymore. And this is my time. Like, this is when I'm like now in the working force, and most of the people that I know in the working force, right, that I grew up with. What kind of hope and aspirations do you have? You don't. In 2008 it was far worse because what we saw was wages got so bad that entire year's wages couldn't cover the cost of transportation to get to work, just to get to work for one day. So people end up getting unemployed. Unemployment hit a 97% rate of unemployment. People in America talk about 3% unemployment rate. It's the exact opposite in Zimbabwe. 97% unemployment rate. Everybody, and so this is what kind of got me into Bitcoin, which is kind of ironic, was because I'm like, okay, I'm still in high school, but I want to make some money. I think I just finished high school actually. I want to make some money. What can I do before I go to university outside the country? Because I'm not staying in this country. It's too bad. I go and get a job, and the guys won't tell you how much that you're getting paid because it is so low. They don't even want to even disclose how little they're paying you. And then when you finally find out, after maybe a month of working in the place, you're getting paid $10. $10 for an entire month's work. You can't do anything. Like, it's not like Zimbabwe where you think, oh no, things will be cheap. No, you're gonna go to a restaurant. Your restaurant's gonna cost you $40 just for you to have a simple date. So even think about it from like a social perspective, because most of the people that I grow up, most of the guys can't even get into a relationship because if your entire month's wage can't even allow you to just take your girlfriend out, or even pay for transportation to just get to work on a daily basis. What hopes do you have of um, starting to date, starting a family, living together, having your wedding, all this stuff? Everything of a functioning society is destroyed when you destroy the money, and you just it's such a sad picture to say, because you live through it on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, so life with Zimbabweans is very hopeless. At the end of the day, you might. I was lucky enough to find um, employment with a company outside of Zimbabwe, working for Rootstock, which allows me to consistently um, push the Bitcoin adoption in Africa. You know, I was even lucky enough to travel to Botswana, to South Africa, to even visit the guys in Bitcoin Ikasi, Muscle Bay, through just the Bitcoin work. You know, and it even paid me way more than when I was working in Zimbabwe. So I was lucky enough to do that. So I was really, really lucky. But for average Zimbabwean, it is pretty terrifying. But what Bitcoin for average Zimbabwean is like, first you talk about just escaping inflation, right? You now have a hard money that actually appreciates. And every time I just show my guys, I just show them the performance of Bitcoin over the last 10 years, how the average performance is about 150% average return. And then, you look at it and say, because most people think is once the currency fails, what happened in Zimbabwe, we use a multi-currency system. So multi-currency system means that you have certain regions, like the ones that are close to the Botswana border. Botswana uses a puller. People will accept the puller and they'll accept US dollars, but they won't accept the local currency. You move further away, coming into my city, Bulawayo, people will accept the rands. They won't accept puller, but they'll accept US dollars, so rands and US dollars. You move further to the capital city of Harare, they accept the US dollars and they accept the local currency, but they won't accept pullers and rands as much. But then you also have a few people, maybe once or twice, accepting pounds and euros, but it's very rare. But it's a multi-currency system, right? So, what you want to do is say, okay, what is the weighted average rate of inflation for these for all currencies? And the weighted average rate of inflation is about 14%. So you want to explain to guys, you're losing 14% of your purchasing power if you store your wealth in the fiat currency. And even if you pick the hardest currencies, the seven of the top currencies, you're still losing close to 7% of your purchasing power over the past 60 years since the invention. That's the weight of inflation, right? So I'm just saying, okay, listen, you can choose to store your money in the local currency, which you don't do that because we've seen 800% of inflation. Okay, you not understand inflation. You apply that to the harder currencies, and then say now you can have a currency that is losing value or one that's actually appreciating in value. And for a lot of people, I think the one other most important thing was we needed to kind of talk more about it, but is sanctions. But Zimbabwe has been cut off from all financial services, credit lines, and we've lost over 100 corresponding bank relations due to what we call the data sanctions and executive order sanctions. So executive order sanctions are sanctions imposed directly by President Biden or by the president before him, right? And they say that any American entity cannot offer Zimbabwean services, and any entity that has bilateral relationships with America cannot offer services to Zimbabweans. So if a Zimbabwean, for example, goes out of Zimbabwe and goes to the Bank of Canada or let's say China, for example, you'll get there, they see your passport and say, well, we can't give you services. We can't allow you to convert your US dollars into our currency, and we can't allow you to get a bank card in order for you to transact, just because of your nationality. It's a collective punishment, and this collective punishment, maybe for two reasons. So the one reason that you'll find the government will say, because there's always two pictures, there's always thing. So one reason may be that whenever a country, a nation is unwilling and unable to protect its citizens, the international community must step in and punish those individuals that are acting bad, which Zimbabwe has had multitude of offenses when it comes to chasing election observers away, beating political opponents, even the massacre. Some say it was up to 200,000 people were massacred, which was done during the Gorokamundi time. This is a war between the Shanas and the Beles, basically. And then you have the reforming. I forgot the exact term for it, but when we took back our land, what happened was we displaced 150,000 families, 310,000 black people lost their jobs, and of the 130,000 that helped displace this land by force due to the fact that you're taking back from blacks to the Caucasians, what happened was the 300,000 didn't even get the land. It was only given to the elites. So that and the worst part about that again, wheat production dropped by 90%, grain production dropped by 75%, and I think it was 69% for grain, and then I forgot the last one. It was 69%. Reason being was because you're taking away land from the men of ability and giving it to the men of need, and the men of need sometimes won't even have the skills to produce, but sometimes they won't even want to produce, so they will just strip the land of its assets, sell what was valuable, and then move on. And that led to massive starvation, something that I even remember myself, right? In my country, whenever you want to say anything bad about the government, people always say, just don't say that. If you guys in America, your rallies are super big, they're impressive, they're popular. It's something that most people go and do. You can say, okay, I want to be with this candidate, I want to be this thing. If I say I want to go to a rally, you'll find family members saying, don't go there, because if you go there, you're going to get beaten with poles, with rocks, by police, you're going to get spray paints, and then you're going to have to pay for your own hospital bill. We fear for your life if you go to a political rally that is in opposition to the current regime. And I think that's one of the things I don't like about authoritarian regimes, is that there's a lack of freedom of choice. If he's underperforming, you can't choose to pick a better opponent. And then this is the sad part, is part of the bad performance of the economy is due to sanctions, right? The purpose of sanctions is collective punishment, which is illegal, by the way, collective punishment on the masses, so that if we can inflict enough economic harm on the citizens of that nation, they will remove the political party through either democratic measures, which we just saw again. The political party will not allow you to have free fair elections. They've chased away observers. They've beaten political opponents. They beat you when you go to rallies. So democratic is not a way. It's not possible. And then you remove it through force. But again, in an authoritarian regime, the government has a monopoly on violence. They have a monopoly on violence. And if they have a monopoly on violence, then you have no way of removing this political party that America or Europe deems against their foreign interests or threat to their foreign interests. So it's just a punishment where Zimbabweans are used as pawns on a chessboard, and they're the ones who we suffer endlessly. I remember there was one video that's kind of viral right now that talks about how um, Israel is bombing Palestine, and it's kind of collective punishment so that it can create terror in order to push the I forgot the Hamas guys out or something like that. But it was just this thing of if you punish a society collectively, um, it's a form of terrorism to a certain degree, right? I just need to find the video that kind of describes it. But the economic conditions of Zimbabwe are extremely miserable. In fact, we were voted the most miserable nation in the world. We were voted that, right? Because you have central bodies trying to push their own agendas consistently and using the people as pawns to do that. And that's why, having, especially starting with the money, where you decentralize the credit systems, the monetary supply, and the trade neutrality, the trade of it, where you can no longer have mission gates that can block trade between Zimbabweans and other nations. That really delivers us. That really helps us. But trying to get Zimbabweans to see that is pretty difficult. One of the reasons that was so difficult is because when you have hyperinflation in a nation, it causes individuals to be high hyper-focused. Reason being is because you've destroyed their purchasing power, and now they can only think about how they're going to survive the next 2 days, and they no longer have enough savings or wealth to think about one. If I'm gonna try and make it, I have to have 3-5 jobs. So I no longer have one job that's paying me enough in order to use my spare time to start my company or start researching on investments or get a better education. I can't do that. I have to work. But two, I can't even afford I can't afford to start a business. I can't afford to get an education, higher education, and I can't afford to make any investments. So high type frequency, it really affects people. But I just also sometimes think that the people of Zimbabwe, I just think the masses there's the masses and then there's the remnant. And the remnant are people who often have just this high level of intelligence and are able to understand the economic challenges that the nation faces and what are the solutions to be solved and stuff.
Yeah, and speaking about the masses, I know that you're a brand ambassador for Rootstock. You've contributed to Bitcoin Magazine. I actually found out about you or more about your story when I was the lead editor for Satoshi's Journal, and you would kind of put stories out there, and I would read them and kind of see the plight that Zimbabweans are kind of going under and how Bitcoin can kind of be this tool for freedom. So, how do these roles, you being at Rootstock and stuff, synergize with your mission at Bitcoin Reach?
Yeah. I think Rootstock has been one of the biggest saviors because they've been kind of been one of the only, most of the time, sometimes they're the only funders for our initiative. So they've been able to give us they've been able to support us with capital in order to host meetups consistently, and with I think sometimes what I noticed when I traveled across to different countries, Botswana, South Africa, and I got to see what kind of meetups they host. If you just host a regular meetup, it's more of a casual conversation with Bitcoin as it already exists. So it's kind of there's a strategy in marketing where they talk about red ocean, blue ocean. So when you a regular meetup or regular Twitter space is people that are really Bitcoiners. When you're working for a company like Rootstock, what they encourage you to do is to go out and seek new audiences. So blue ocean, you're no more fighting for existing Bitcoiners or existing people in the market. You're going to create and expand that reach, right? Bitcoin reach, right? So it allows us to really expand into and reach out to new people. They try to aim for 25 new people every month for meetups, and sometimes we get way above that. Because we did it so consistently. There've been some times where we get up to like um, 50 participants in a meetup. To even and these are kind of big numbers because we end up like filling up a whole restaurant of just people who are coming and excited to learn what Bitcoin is. So we've been able to really like reach out to probably thousands of people because we've been doing this every month, you know. And I think that I don't see it happen everywhere, but I really think it's a really important thing of getting into the masses because people always talk about how do we reach new people, how do you reach new audiences, how do we expand, and this is one of the ways. And the thing about it is that we're not going to talk to people who won't get the message. You're looking for people who really get Bitcoin and could be potential investors and could even um, uh, be also just joining the community itself, right? So it's allowed us to expand the community, grow the adoption, reach out to new audiences, but also every time we have a meetup, we encourage to get everyone to download a hot wallet, get an address, right? So you expand the addresses, for example, right? Getting people to just see how simple Bitcoin is for the first time. There was even moments where we were even giving away Bitcoin, to our attendees, which was just such an amazing experience, for example. And I think, the the biggest impact sometimes comes when you have a collaboration of Rootstock, Giza Fund, and maybe just one other sponsor. Because, like for example, I think we just we managed to get a grant from Giza Fund, and we're also gonna get. I think we also got a grant from Bitcoin Kasi, growing circular economies, and now we're buying like a whole lot of equipment so that we can level up on our visual production because we just don't want to have a physical reach to people. We need a lot more content creating in towards Bitcoin, especially in Africa, in Zimbabwe, that will reach the people. So sometimes you got to think what's more important: the digital footprint, like what you're doing right now, and also physical footprint, because even when you do these physical events, they say, okay, what can I watch in order to learn more about it? And you're like, okay, yeah, we've got a video for you. Here's a video, right? So we're about to start buying more equipment, and right after the equipment part, what we wanted to do is just we didn't have as much capital as we would have liked to. No, just one outfit for
Hey there,
each of
fellow
our.
Bitcoin enthusiasts. We just wanted to take a moment to appreciate you for tuning in to the Bitcoin Source, a Bitcoin conversation. Your support means the world to us as we dive into the exciting world of Bitcoin, blockchain, and all things cryptocurrency. If you've been enjoying our content, don't forget to hit that like button. It's like a virtual high five that keeps us motivated. And hey, sharing is caring. If you know someone who'd geek out over Bitcoin as much as we do, hit that share button. Finally, if you want to stay up to date with all our latest episodes and insights, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single update. Thanks for being a part of our community. Keep exploring, and remember, the future is decentralized. Now back to the episode.
Each of the alpha members. So we have alpha members, and then we're going to have beta members. And what we wanted to do was you get the outfit. It's kind of like this African slogan kind of thing, but it has a Bitcoin logo to it. And you go into universities, for example. You go into universities and you say, hey guys, we're having a meetup. Join our community. Join our WhatsApp group. And then when we have a next meetup, you can come and sit in. Or if you're not outside the university itself or inside like just the campus, we start going into the clubs of these universities, because some of us are members actually university students, right? And then again, but even if it's not in universities, you're going to shopping malls and you're reaching out to people, because we wanted like a really low budget way of how can we reach out to as many people who might be eager to learning about it, but just have never had someone to explain it to them, right? So how can we do that at a low budget way? One outfit, maybe one or two outfits for the members. They go out every maybe Tuesday or Thursday or Saturday, have a target, 10 people in that day. You have 4 people, that's about 40 people that have reached out, that you've reached out to, probably joined into the community itself in the WhatsApp group, and then we're working towards getting to 1,000 members, to 2,000 members in the WhatsApp group. We just didn't have the right funds for it. But what we're now doing is, whenever we also Bitcoin meetup with the Bitcoin, with the budget that Rootstock gives, we'll just try to save a little bit of that money. It's not that much, but a little bit of that money towards growth, capital expenditure, and you see. But that's just when we have Rootstock. Imagine if we had other things, so we could really just one time thing, and yeah. But just these small, taking what you have, the little amount that you have, and sort of just make the biggest impact as possible, is something that we're really fighting for. And yeah, it's been pretty good journey so far.
Yes, and having been on the front lines of Bitcoin adoption in a challenging environment such as Zimbabwe, what have been your key lessons that other Bitcoin advocates around the world can learn from?
Yeah, I think one of the key lessons is, it's in every nation is like so different. It's so different. So just like if you're starting a community in Zimbabwe, because of sanctions, and this is why I talk about sanctions, sometimes a bigger company can't hire you, right? So they can hire everyone around you, but they can't hire you because they're breaching sanctions. It's not because of sanctions you can't get sponsorships. You can't get the cost of doing bigger business is much higher than yours. So it's a lot difficult for certain regions. Sometimes it's not even sanctions. Sometimes your nation itself just has an implicit ban. But yeah, it's so different. Every ground is different, because if you look to the neighbor, it's not easier for them. I think the one advantage that Zim has had is because most Bitcoin companies can't come in. Most of the Bitcoin adoption is either Bitcoin or stablecoin. It's nothing of the funny other things. It's just really key factors that are really important. So the really good solutions will work, and the other ones that aren't that useful won't really work that much. But besides that, I think the most important thing is, one, finding a way to really reduce your cost, and how can you endure for the longest possible. I think one of the most important things is just endurance. Can you stay in the game for as long as possible, and what allows you to do that? I think the problem with a lot of people who want to start communities is it's not, you're not getting paid. If you start a Bitcoin Reach, if you start a Bitcoin Kasi, most of these communities you won't get a single cent from it. So you can't even devote your life towards it, right? And only when you get to a certain level, maybe do some people recognize you, but sometimes you can go for years and years and you won't get a single ounce of recognition. So it's just more about just forget about getting any reward, forget about getting any recognition. Just do what needs to be done. There's a thing about Walking Dead where he says he talks about his grandfather who would wake up every day in the wartime, and he would act like he's dead, and every day he would tell himself that he's dead, and he survived. And it's just the motto is just that, the message is just that you do what needs to be done, and then you get to live. You just got to do whatever needs to be done, and then eventually you make progress. You make some progress and stuff.
Yes, that's a powerful message, bro. And with Bitcoin Reach currently just focused on Zimbabwe, do you have plans to expand to other parts of Southern Africa? And like, what is your grand vision for Bitcoin Reach within the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think the outfit thing was, I mean, with the outfits, what you had was like alpha members. So as long as you have an outfit, you can go out, you can do a Bitcoin walk, and you can talk to people, multiple people in your region. If we send you an outfit in the capital city or in different cities in your nation, you can push Bitcoin Reach adoption, right? Right. If we send you an outfit in Botswana, in Lusaka, Zambia, you can expand it. The first thing was, so the most important thing was we wanted to just get our our visual technological thing on just a decent quality. Then from getting different adequate infrastructure for just then what we next do is just focus on the outfits and growth. We wanna reach as many people as possible, get them into the community itself. And then what ends up happening is, you have people coming, leaving, but just, because our group, we have a WhatsApp group, and we talk a lot. So if you're not down for it, you'll just kind of move away. But if you are down for it, you'll stay and you'll enjoy and you'll keep learning. So it's a real movement. We've got up to about 450 people, but we really want to expand to the thousands. We want to be we want to be the biggest community in Zimbabwe, but we also love to expand, especially with the outfits program, to other nations. It's just always this kind of resources, because a lot of the time, a lot of people want some financial gain from it, and it's like I can't offer people anything at all. I can try getting them jobs in certain regions, but I can't offer much, So it's kind of finding those people who, whether there's money or not, the whole thing. One of the things that I always try to do was, if we can create a big enough audience and have a big enough reach, you will incentivize companies to start working with you. And if they're wanting to hire people in your community, then the incentive comes. But you first have to build that community, that audience, that incentive for both parties, so that it's mutually beneficial. And I'm so grateful that Rootstock has allowed us to just build it from nothing up until now.
Yes, that's a powerful message, bro. And with Bitcoin Reach currently just focused on Zimbabwe, do you have plans to expand to other parts of Southern Africa? And like, what is your grand vision for Bitcoin Reach within the next 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing about Bitcoin Reach has really pushed me towards. I've always wanted to do a Bitcoin podcast. I mean, so do a podcast in finance. I've just been super passionate about that, and Bitcoin Reach has allowed me to consistently post content, challenge myself into learning more aspects about the financial systems, the way it works, politics, economics. I mean, they're saying, the more you know, the less you know. And that's what I think a lot of people always think. I think I'll even say that as advice, is that a lot of people think that they listen to me sometimes, and listen to me talk about politics, and think I'm just born with this knowledge and I know everything. I'm like, dude, the more I get to learn, the least I think I know. You're always just reading so much about the traditional system, and we need to know more than the proponents, the individuals in the traditional system, if you want to build a better system for it. The one thing I also learned about that is that, you won't make progress kind of fighting the old system. You make progress by building a better system, and that's what we've been trying to do. Is really trying to build a better world, a world where it's not just always clubs and twerking and drugs and alcohol. It's people linking up to talk about finance, to talk about money, to talk about revolution, right? We want to re-inspire the African heart to fight for their liberty. I think the one thing that I think is so sad in Africa is we've stopped fighting, especially in Zimbabwe. We've stopped fighting for our sovereignty, and I say that that's the most important thing. Is it's also allowed me to be more apathetic, really apathetic towards things that matter the most, right? Which starts with the money. And I say for any entrepreneur, it's like you're gonna face so many days where you you kind of want to cry and you want to just give up, and it seems so impossible. But then that's when it's about to get better, and you'll probably make it through if you just keep keep pushing, keep pushing. And just the most important thing is um, compounding. You know, when you focus and just focus on one specific thing, it compounds. You compound, you get better and better at it. But it's also the same thing. If you compound being bad at something, being dishonest, you'll build. So many people will learn to distrust you. But if you compound on being an honest person, good working person, you know, not pushing funny cryptocurrencies, that one thing, or funny exchanges, people will learn to trust you more and more. If you're always pushing self custody, people will learn to trust you more and more, right? So just being that genuine good person, it builds with time. You build these relationships, you build this trust, you build your capital, you build your influence, and yeah, focusing on one specific task, and yeah, it'll compound with time. You'll be happy where you get to.
Yes, man, that's good advice, bro. I really appreciate this conversation. I think that what you're doing in Zimbabwe is super impactful and is going to change the way that the country looks at Bitcoin. And of course, you know, this episode hopefully will get more people to know about Bitcoin Reach and be able to support you. You know, geyser funds. You know, the Bitcoin ecosystem is really cool because if people see projects out there, people see people doing different things in the space, they tend to support it, right? So as we wrap up this
Yeah,
conversation, I always want to remind people that this is an ever evolving nature of Bitcoin, right? Where you have these ups, you have these downs, and people are always trying to find ways to be innovative and different. And it's always my job to make sure that I highlight people coming from third world countries, countries where you don't really get to see exactly what's really going on with Bitcoin in those spaces. So thank you, Alex, for being so instrumental in your fight in Zimbabwe to make Bitcoin be adopted ubiquitously in the country.
yeah. I mean, thank you so much for this opportunity to where I get to share my message. I really appreciate like being having this opportunity to just share what we do. I really love your podcast, and it was really awesome to be here. Finally, we finally get to do it. But yeah, I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this conversation that we had.
Yes. And to our listeners, please remember to stay informed, curious, and engaged. See you next time on the Bitcoin Source.
But awesome. Cheers.